We're live. All right, everybody. Hello, people are going to be filing in a moment. I'm Jason.
I am David.
Wait, am I pointing? Actually, I'm pointing like...
I think it's the opposite of last time.
Yeah,
Last time
I'm confused.
Yeah.
Right. Cool. Well, hey, thanks for joining us again for our second live stream. This time we're going to be talking about and showing you more. It's going to be more show and tell than tell and show, I guess. How we use Basecamp at Basecamp to run the entire company. We're going to sort of show you how the sausage is made, basically, take you through our actual account, hopefully not show you anything too sensitive, but we're going to show you as much as we can, and hopefully we'll give you a pretty good idea of how we organize work, how we think about making announcements to the whole company, how we structure the company inside Basecamp. A lot of people who use Basecamp are always curious, like, how do you structure your projects? How do you structure your teams? What is the HQ for? Those kinds of things. So we'll walk you through that. We're also going to be taking questions live. So on Twitch and on Twitter, if you're on Twitter, it's #AskJFDHH. And on Twitch, I think you just enter a comment in the chat thing. I'm not sure how that works. I'm not on it right now, but however you do that, you'll do that, and we'll get those up here as well. And if you have a question about something, maybe we can show you the answer. So ask away. One of the couple quick housekeeping things, and then we'll jump in. Just a little bit of structure about how we're set up, actually. So we're going to show you our Basecamp account, and our Basecamp account is how we work, even if we're local or remote. So this is not what I'm not showing you is like how we scrambled to start working remotely. We've always worked this way. That's why you'll see like a rich history of lots of different things in our account. If you're going to sign up for Basecamp tomorrow, your account will not look anything like ours to start, which is why I'm going to begin by actually showing you what a blank account looks like and setting up like a new company from scratch, just so you have a quick sense. It'll take a few minutes. I'll show you that live so you can see it's very, very easy, and pretty quickly you can kind of simulate your company structure in Basecamp. And then we'll switch over into our account and show you how it all works. So let's get going here. Making sure we're live. Everything seems to be going good. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen here, and I'm going to show you a empty account. David, can you see this? Because I can't see you.
Yep.
Okay,
yeah,
great. All right, great. So what I have here is a brand new Basecamp account that I set up, or I signed up for a couple minutes before we launched this live stream. This takes 20 seconds to do. Name, password, company. I think there's like 2 questions to answer, and you're in. So this is what you'd actually land on. Although when you land here, the first thing you would see is, do you want to take a quick 2-minute video tour? I said no, and this is where you land. So this is how Basecamp 3 is structured. Now, if you're familiar with Basecamp Classic or Basecamp 2, this is going to look totally different to you. If you're familiar with Basecamp 3, you'll know what this is. If you don't know what Basecamp is at all, it's new to you as well. But basically what we have here is we have 3 sections on the homepage. We're currently looking at the homepage, and this is sort of where you set up your company structure. At the top, we have what's called the HQ. And I'm going to go into each one of these in a minute, but I'll kind of give you a quick overview. The HQ is like your company intranet, basically. Every employee in your company has access to the HQ, and that's where you can make announcements. You can have company-wide chat. You can keep track of schedules, to-dos, docs and files. I'll show you all that in a minute, but that's what you have here. And what you're allowed to do is, you can pop your own logo in here. I'm just kind of adding a generic, well, not generic, a next logo, but whatever your logo is, you can pop it in there. And this whole block up here is like the company, okay? Down here, you have your teams. And teams are like departments or groups or teams, whatever you call them. And we have a couple samples here, which I'll walk through in a second. But let me show you how quickly you can set up your own company structure. So you go new, like, well, let's see, we have an HR department, boom. We have a marketing department. Okay, cool. We have a design group. We have programmers. Maybe we have a data group. We have a podcast group, et cetera, et cetera. You could say we also have like executives. You could have an executives group or a team. You can also have like a manager's team. And these teams are distinct workspaces for these given teams. Now, I'm the only person on my account, which is why you only see my little avatar JF. If I wanted to add 3 people to data, I could do that. If I wanted to add 7 people to design, I could do that. If I wanted to add the entire company to HR, I could do that. You get to decide who has access to which team. And if you don't have access, you don't even see it. So you don't even know it exists. So it's totally safe to do things like executives and not worry about anyone else seeing it. And I'll show you in our account how we actually have that set up. But really quickly, I just set up, 8 teams. And then also the customer support team, which is the sample team we give you. So let me go into that really quick so you can see like what lives inside of a team. So inside of a team, you have a series of tools. And by the way, when you first look at this, it's going to say you're in a sample team. I'll just get that out of the way. And these are the people who have access to the team. Okay. These are the people on the team in this case. And you have 6 default tools in every single Basecamp team and Basecamp project. You've got a message board, which is where you can post long form messages. I'll show you that in a minute. To-dos, a place to keep track of all the to-dos or tasks that the team needs to get done. Docs and files. This is a place where you keep track of any sort of documents you need, files, text files, Google Docs, Google spreadsheets, anything you need to keep in one central place that the team's going to need, you put in here. The campfire, which is a real-time chat room. Schedule, like who's out of town, things that are coming up, any team meetings, that kind of stuff. And automatic check-ins. These are questions that are asked automatically on a given cadence. In this case, 10 people every Friday at 9 a.m. And then those answers then publish back to this place. Now, these are the tools. You can move them around. You can reorganize things any way you want. You can even rename them if you want to do that. So if you want to rename Campfire, you can call it chat. You can do whatever you want, right? And to go into one of these tools, you simply click it, and here's a message. Thank you cards. Click on that. And this is sort of a long form message that Kristen wrote to the whole support team. And they kind of went back and forth and had some comments and some pictures and some stuff that they're thinking about sending customers, thank you cards, that kind of stuff. And they just kind of share that with each other. Customer interactions outside of a support desk. What do you do if someone emails you outside of the support desk? Here's some tips on here's how I do it. My name's Chase in this case. People go back and forth in the comments and discuss that. And one of the fundamental tenets of Basecamp is that everything is what we call commentable, which means you can discuss anything in context, which is so much better than discussing these things somewhere else. So like if you posted this to a chat room and you start chatting about it, well, the discussion about that thing is not attached to that main thing because anything can pop into a chat room at any time. But what's nice about this is you can come to a page, make the announcement, and then all the discussion about that thing lives permanently right below the thing. So you're always organized and you always know where to come back to find that conversation about that one thing. So that's like
we've used just so many times over the years where we come back to a thread 2 years later. Perhaps we've been discussing something, an A/B test. And oftentimes like the meat of a project lives in the comments, right? So being able to find that, having that on the record and being able to search for it and find it in context, not just one floaty line somewhere, is huge.
Yep. So that's the message board. Message board for a lot of companies is kind of like most companies would email this stuff around. The problem with email, of course, is that email is decentralized. So you might have this really meaty discussion via email, and then what? Some new employee joins the company 2 weeks later, and how do they see that discussion? They weren't on the thread. It's gone for them. They don't even know it exists. If you want to forward them 30 emails, we all know how shitty of an experience that is. So what's nice about the message board is it's a centralized place that's always here, and anyone you add to this project or you add to this team has full access to the entire conversation, no matter when they were joined the company, whether or not they were part of it or not, that sort of thing.
And it always just lives as a URL. You have this one way of referring to it. You can't link to an email. Everyone's email has their own little thing. Here's a global URL. You can send it around to anyone. You can have the full context. And it's readable after the fact. Like email is great when you're in it and you're going back and forth. But if you try to read something that has 25 replies, it's a complete mess. A message thread on Basecamp that has 25 replies is in chronological order. It's nicely formatted. All the images look right. All the attachments are there. It's just such a nicer experience.
And we'll show you a lot more examples as we go. So I'm going to kind of speed through these because these are samples, which if you sign up for Basecamp, you'll be able to look at these exact same things. And then we'll dive into our account in a second. But you got a message board, you got Campfire. This is just chat. Some people use Slack, some people use HipChat, all sorts of different things. Basecamp has chat built in, so you don't even need to use a third-party product. You don't need to buy another tool, pay for another tool, set up another tool, onboard people with another product. It's right in here. To-dos, very simple. You can create lists. Inside those lists, you can create items. Those items can be moved around, of course. You can assign them. This is an assignment here. You can have due dates, all sorts of things, and we'll show you a lot more examples of that as we go. Docs and files, basically, you've got places to add. You can add a text document. You can add files from Google Drive or Dropbox or Box or OneDrive. You can upload files. You can make a folder. Here's a folder with 4 text documents inside of it. Again, you can move these around. You can color them if you want, like green or red or pink or yellow or whatever you need to do just to kind of organize things. Basecamp's all about getting things organized in one central place so everyone has access to the same stuff. Basically, it's all about one central source of truth, and I'll show you some great examples of that in a minute.
The nice thing about the docs and files, if compared to having all your files on just some storage device, is that it lives together with the rest. So you have all the messages. Everything for this project or for this team is in one place. You don't have to find it across the 5 different products. And everything, as Jason says, is commentable. So you go to do a document, you can have that full rich thread of discussion about the current schedule, about a report, something else there, and it all lives together. And it's the same interface. There's nothing new to learn. One of the problems a lot of people find themselves into when they're scrambling to set up a new system for remote work is you got to learn 5 different interfaces. How do you add people? How do you do comments there? This is the same thing all over. You learn how to use the message board, you pretty much know how to use everything else as well.
Yep. There's docs and files, automatic check-ins. We'll go through that in a minute in our project. Schedule, very simple, straightforward schedule. Click on a day, jumps down to it. Nothing, no rocket science here, but all in one place, all nice and neat and organized, all shareable with anybody on the team. And then down below here, which I'll show you in another project, you'd have a history of every single thing that happened in that project by time and by date, nicely organized. So I'll show you what that looks like too. Anyway, this is the support team. And what's cool is what I just showed you here would be the same in all of these other teams. Okay, these are, of course, there's nothing in here because I just made them. But every team has its own workspace with all the same set of tools, and you can turn tools on and off. For example, if data just wanted, let's see, they didn't have a schedule and they didn't want check-ins. They just had chat, Campfire, to-dos, and message board. Boom, you just got 4 tools right there. And if I want to rename Campfire to chat, I just call it chat instead. And if I want to name the message board to announcements, boom, we're like that. And now I've kind of customized my tools in a way that makes sense to my team and organize things in my way. And if I want to invite people, I just click on this. I would add someone. I could say David, whatever, and invite people. I don't need to go through that. You get the point. But that's how that works. So every team has its own place. And the same thing is true with projects. So you could think of teams as places for people and projects as places for work. So, maybe you have a, website redesign going on right now. Maybe you have a, working at home or getting set up to work at home, right? That's the project. You get those set up, right? Inside those projects, you have the same set of tools that you would if you were a team, and it's all right here in one place. Here's a sample project for making a podcast. I'll actually walk you through our podcast project in our account in a minute. But you can get the sense here of how much power you have behind each one of these little squares. All the different tools. I mean, you think about it, this replaces email. This replaces any to-do app or task app you have. This replaces any sort of storage thing you need. Schedule is all you need. You don't need a separate calendar. Campfire, all your chats right here. Check-ins is something no one else really has anyway. I'll show you what that looks like and how powerful that is. You have all these tools in one place, scope to a specific project, scope to a specific team, all together, all organized. And as you can see here, what I just did was I basically just mirrored my whole company. Here's my whole company in the HQ up here. Here are my teams, individual teams with different people in them. Of course, I haven't invited them, but you'll see in our account. And here are the projects we have going on. And I only see the stuff I have access to see. I can't see something I haven't been invited to. It's very straightforward and a very simple way to organize your whole company and get it going. I just set this up in literally like a minute. And you could do the same thing today, later on. So anyway, that's a sample from scratch account, but I'm going to take you now into our actual account and show you how we work day to day. Before I do that, Andy, are there any questions that have bubbled up that would be useful to answer before I do that?
Oh yeah, we got tons of questions.
All right, I'm going to switch over. So hide my screen for a second.
Sure.
All right.
Let's see. This is the one that I like the most. We have trouble determining how much work or communication should be done with a team versus spinning off into a project.
Yeah, this is something we struggle with too, to be honest. But the way we kind of think about it is this: project work should be in projects. And part of the important thing there is to scope projects properly. And I'll show you some examples of that. The teams for us are more like overarching umbrellas. Like you might discuss multiple different kind of high level things in a team, but you only discuss very specific things in a project. We also tend to invite everybody to teams and across the whole company, even though the team might only have 4 people, because that's a place where we actually allow other people to interact with that team. So if you have a question about, like, I need some JavaScript help, I might go into the research and fidelity team to ask them a question, or I might need some help, or I want to get some data. So I might go into the data team. There's not a project set up for like data requests. There's a team set up for that. And I'll show you how that works in a minute. But that's kind of how we think about it. If it's about people or overarching themes, teams are good for that. If it's about specific work, projects are good for that.
I think a good way to figure this out is if what you're trying to do can be summarized in one to-do item, it just goes in the team. If it can be summarized in one message, it just goes in the team. And then from there, what often happens is a project will start that way. It'll start as one to-do, it'll start as one pitch that we post in a team project or in our What Works project. And then once we realized, okay, this is the thing, we're gonna have multiple people working on it, they need to coordinate together, we don't need to bother everyone with all the minutiae of that, let's move it over into a project. So I think it's totally safe just to start it in a team. I'd say a lot of things probably should start at the team, so should start in another general project, because you don't want like a ton of sort of half-empty projects. Projects are meaty things that they have all the tools, so jump to those when you really feel like, okay, it's kind of crowding the rest out.
Cool. All right. Actually, any other questions real quick, Andy, or should I jump in to the account?
I would jump into the account.
All right, I'm going to jump in. All right, here's the moment of truth. This is the real thing. Let's see what happens here. We're trusting the whole world to keep things confidential, let's say. All right, which is, of course, an insane thing to do, but why not, right? What's the difference? Okay, so let me share my screen here. And Andy, bring my screen back in. Is it back in?
Yep.
I can't see. All right. So here is our actual Basecamp account. Now, this is our old logo way back in the day when before we were called Basecamp, we were called 37 Signals. This is our 37 Signals logo. This is our dose of nostalgia that is always going to hang around. So anyway, this is our actual account. And let me walk you through, I'm going to scroll through some stuff really quick, and then I'm going to actually walk through some specific examples of real things that we're working on. So again, we have our HQ. I'll show you that in a second. These are some of our teams. Now you'll see here that some of we kind of stretch the definition of teams a little bit in some ways. So 4 heads. This is actually a team of 4 of us where we talk about product strategy behind the scenes. So this is like, it's me, Jeff, Ryan, and David. And before we kind of really announce product decisions to the rest of the company, sometimes we go in here and talk about them. That just 4 people can access this. That's why there's just 4 faces here. The Chicago office, this is actually a team we use, although the whole company has access to it. You'll see that there's a plus 54 here, meaning 54 additional people. But fundamentally, this is mostly about stuff in Chicago. So because we do have an office in Chicago, Chicago has a different team. The Rework Podcast team is right here. It's really only 2 people, but everyone has access to it. You'll see mostly in our case, everyone has access to everything. We're a very open company in that way. We have an iOS team, an Android team, admin team, core product. We have some social teams. So this is a team called All Cars. This is like everyone who loves cars jumps in here. I like cars.
Everyone loves Volvos, really.
Yeah, everyone who loves Volvos. That's our little internal thing. design team, managers, executive branch. This is just me and David. We talk about the nitty gritty right in here. No one else can see it. And I'm not going to show you today. Sorry. But anyway, that's what this is about. This is.
I think actually, by the way, the executive branches, to make a point.
Yeah.
The main gift you get out of these projects is that when it's even just two people, is it still this considered space? When I want to suggest something for the company strategy to Jason or vice versa, we can write it up. It can be this long form. We've been doing this a fair bit, and even recently too, where we're discussing major things, and you think like, man, couldn't you just jump on the phone? Yeah, you could, but it would have all the drawbacks of that, as we talk about with even larger groups, right? Sometimes you need that consideration. So this focus on having all these teams is a lot about the focus of writing, on asynchronous communication.
Yeah, people always ask me, like, how often do I talk to David? How often do I see David? I see David physically 3 times a year. David lives in California. I live in Chicago, in Illinois. We video chat once every few weeks. Like, we mostly work in here. And I can't show you this stuff because it's really confidential, but we mostly work in Basecamp. We mostly talk in Basecamp. So, we're not on the phone every day. We're not doing video conferences all day. We're not in meetings all day. We're in Basecamp all day. And that means we're able to communicate whenever we each have a chance. But anyway, I can get into some other examples of that in a minute. But these are some examples of some teams. QA, Small Council, by the way, is a team that we have, which is made up of all the department heads, essentially, that have at least one direct report. And we discuss some things, like sometimes some stuff starts in executive branch, and then David and I kind of refine it and bring it to the Small Council. And the Small Council, we discuss things, which is then disseminated to the rest of the company. So these are our teams, and I'm going to walk into a couple of them in just a second. And then down here we have projects, and I'm just going to scroll really fast through these because you can see that we have a ton of projects. Now, some of these are old. We haven't cleaned everything up, but we typically break projects into really small pieces of work, and I'll show you what that looks like in a little bit. But we don't have typically big Uber projects. We have a few, but mostly they're like really small projects that are like alive for 2 weeks or 4 weeks or 6 weeks, that sort of thing. For the most part, we break projects into smaller bits. Let me start by walking into our HQ for a moment. So again, the HQ is our company, essentially our company intranet. All company-wide announcements happen there. All social company-wide chatter happens there. Anything that's scheduled company-wide happens there. We ask some social questions there. And let me just show you what that looks like. So this is our HQ. Now, let me walk you through the tools because these tools are a little bit different. We've renamed them. And they're not different in that like you wouldn't have them. You'd have the same things, but we've kind of moved them around a little bit. Topics, and I'll walk you through some of these in a minute. These are where we make company-wide announcements that everyone has to see, okay? The stuff that's posted in here is not optional. This is stuff that we decide needs to be seen. I should probably rename this to announcements, to be honest. In fact, I'm going to do that right now because I don't like that it's called topics. It doesn't really make sense. Announcements. There's a reason why it's not called that, but anyway, you get the point. All talk, this is our like company-wide chat room, which is purely social stuff. We don't talk business in here at all. I'll just jump in really quick. It's chat room. You get the picture. Memes, you know how chat rooms go. No different than any other chat room around the entire world. But that's right here. Everyone has access to it. Automatic check-ins. I'll go through that in a second. We don't have any dates right now and any schedule items. So this is just an empty tool for now. But if there was some company-wide thing like a meetup coming up or some company-wide something, we'd put it here so everyone would have access to that. Reference materials. I hope we're okay here. Yeah, I think we're okay. So this is like, for example, a place where we have our like policies. We also have a company-wide employee handbook, but we also have some like other stuff that's in here that everyone might need to get to. For example, let me see if I can jump into something like logos. Like here's a bunch of logos for old products. Like they're here. If you need these, they're here, right? We have some stuff around health insurance somewhere in here. I'll have to find that in a minute. Oh, Basecamp benefits, right? Here are our benefits. These are health insurance or life insurance cards for everybody, and dental insurance. I'm sorry, not life. This is vision and dental. Here's the policies. Here's our list of national holidays. These are the holidays we don't want anyone to work on. You do not have to work. And since we have people all over the world, we've got the holidays in the US and the holidays in Canada and Germany and Brazil. Everywhere we have employees, we list all the national holidays. So no one has to wonder, do we work today? Do I work on Veterans Day? Do I work on Labor Day? Do I work on Boxing Day? Can I work on Whit Monday? I don't know what that is, but no, there's no work. Here's our retirement plan information. Here's our employee assistance program. MetLife counseling, benefits. This is the most up-to-date information on our benefits. Here they are, right here. This is a big, long document with our average employee health insurance payments, all the different things we offer. It's all right here, right? Blue Cross Blue Shield is our health insurance, all that stuff, right? It's all here in one place, so everybody in the company has access to it and doesn't have to wonder where to go to get it. They don't have to ask anybody. And if you think about this, this is not a separate, like, look, we've all had to log into like separate company, like third-party tools that we have to use that manage our insurance and all that stuff. It's like the biggest hassle in the world. Everyone knows that. If you work at Basecamp, all the benefits are in Basecamp, in the HQ, in a folder called Basecamp Benefits. Everything you need is in one place for every employee. We onboard a new employee, a second later, they have access to all the stuff without having to set them up for 7 or 8 different accounts and different vendors and the whole thing. It's just so much simpler to do it this way. And that's just this. We also do this thing called 5x12. 5x12s are, every month we pick 5 random people in the company to have a 1-hour video chat about random stuff that's not work. And someone then transcribes that, and that transcription is then posted. I'm not going to scroll through this whole thing, but it's posted here for everybody to participate. So the 5 people get to participate on video, but everyone gets to read what was discussed. It's sort of a fun thing. So anyway, all this stuff is here in one place. That's what reference materials is, which is also called docs and files. Fan mail, I'm not going to open this because it has people's, actually there's some email addresses in there. I'm sorry about showing a couple of those. So let me kind of ignore this, please. But basically, this is a place where, here, boom, that kind of helped a little bit. Anyway, fan mail is a place where you can forward in emails to Basecamp. And if you forward emails into Basecamp, they will show up in this tool called email forwards, which we've renamed fan mail, and we keep track of all that stuff in one place, which is really nice. Here's our to-dos. But let me walk into automatic check-ins for a second. Actually, let me walk into announcements. Announcements is where we make, again, company-wide announcements, all right? So we just hired someone new. I can't click on this because I can't give away their name, but we just hired someone new. We make that announcement right here so everybody can see it. And then everybody can chime in and say, welcome. When we announced that we were going to give people a few days off last week because of the, or 2 weeks ago, actually, I think it was now, because of the COVID-19 stuff that was going on, we wanted to give employees an extra couple days to release the pressure, let them take care, get some equipment or some supplies or whatever they needed. We posted that here, okay? Down here, these are called boosts in Basecamp, where people can leave little tiny short comments. They can be really short. They can be emojis. They can be I think it's 16 characters, and they can kind of personalize that. It's a nice little thing there. A few days ago, I posted something on our blog, Signal versus Noise, showing people's home offices. And I posted that message here in Basecamp in the HQ saying, everyone's curious about how people's home office setup looks like. Like, post your picture here, and I'll post it on our blog. So I just asked here, the notification goes out to 55 people, which is the whole company here. And people posted those things as comments. And then some people posted little boosts below it, sort of commenting on that, which is super fun. And these are all, I can share these because I said these will all be public. And this is how we collected all those photos from people. Again, one single thread in Basecamp forever. And I just went and cherry picked all these out and popped them into WordPress and published a blog post. Which is really super nice. So that's where this came from. When we talked about, we're launching Hey, we're supposed to be launching Hey, our new email thing at the end of April. Well, we talked about postponing that because this is the wrong time to launch a product right now. So we're going to postpone that, and that's where we announced that. And then the last week, the U.S. government passed a couple new leave acts for people if you live in the U.S. So we posted the news on that. Again, these are company-wide announcements that everyone needs to see. Of course, we have some employees that don't live in the U.S. and it's not relevant to them necessarily, but this is where all announcements go when we need to make sure everybody knows. Here's another example. We said, look, working parents right now can't really possibly work full time. They're at home with their kids. They have no help right now. So we're basically saying, like, we get that. We understand that. Do whatever you need to do. Whatever you need to do is fine with us. We made that announcement here in one place. Anyway, that's what we do in the announcements, our message board inside our HQ. Now I want to take you through automatic check-ins for a second. I'm going to show you more of these in another project, but I want to show you one thing in here. These are more social things. And I'm not going to show some of these because these are personal. But every Monday morning, we ask the whole company, what'd you do this weekend? And this is a great thing to do for, especially for during remote working. We do it all the time because we're always remote, but it helps. And these are all optional, of course, but it helps people share a little bit about like their life. Like what they do this last weekend. Well, I went to go visit the grandparents. Hopefully not right now, you didn't, but in the past you would have. We went to a farm this weekend and went to a petting zoo. I hiked, I hiked this mountain. I went on this vacation, whatever it was. And people share pictures and share the richness of their lives with everybody else, so people can get to know one another outside of work. Seen any good movies lately? I will share this one, which is something we ask once a month, which is, what books are you reading? People share, like, I'm reading some books here. I kind of wrote up a couple one book particular, and shared some passages I thought were really particularly interesting. Sean shared a book that he's reading. Elizabeth shared some books that she's reading, that sort of thing. Lexi, some books that she's reading. Waylon, some books that she's reading. Ryan read nothing over the past month, and he said that, that sort of thing. So this is just a nice way for us to share a little bit about our lives and things we're interested in these days. They're pretty cool.
I'd also say here that this is one of those examples of how do you build a culture at a remote company? How do you get people to know each other? Well, this is one of those reasons, right? Like, you allow people, you invite people to share parts of their life that they otherwise perhaps would have shared at lunch or at the water cooler or something. And one of the side effects of this is that it's allowing people to really get to know others around interests they didn't even know that they had. Hey, you're reading the same book as me? Oh, wow, let's talk about that, right? In a way that actually provides some cross-pollination. Whenever I worked in an office, I usually ended up with like my little group of people. And we'd go out to lunch and I'd get to know like 4 or 5 people really well. And then there'd be another 20 that were more, I didn't know that well. One of the effects of having all these social questions in Basecamp is that I kind of feel like I get an insight into people's lives that I otherwise perhaps wouldn't have, right? It strikes up conversation across departments in a way that's really warm. And this is one of those reasons we've had several people at Basecamp say, hey, I know my coworkers at Basecamp. Even if I only see them twice a year when we do our meetups, I know them better than who I used to work in a physical office with.
What's cool too is, I'm just going to zoom past here for 1 second. So like David reads a lot. What's cool, here's a little trick. If you click on someone's name, what you're going to see is actually the entire history of someone's answers. So what are you reading? All answers by David. These are all of David's books that he's been reading back.
When I do my yearly thing of like the books I read in 2019 or whatever, I just go in here and I copy paste. I just take the whole thing because it's actually a great record, almost like a notebook for yourself too. I use this on myself all the time. Like, hey, what did I answer in this? And then you look back through it. And it's really just a nice way of having that on the record. I would not otherwise have really written down what I thought about books from 2 years ago, right?
And I'll show you. It's
not something I do.
And I'll show you how that's really useful when it comes to actual work too. So we'll get to that in a second. Anyway, so this is our HQ essentially. Again, company-wide announcements, social chatter, automatic questions that are asked on a regular basis automatically by the system, a place for all the reference materials everyone in the company needs to know, emails we want to forward in that I want everyone else to see, that sort of thing. So I'm going to go back to the home screen for a second, and we're going to walk through an actual team. The team I'm going to choose to walk through is the Rework Podcast. So I'm going into the Rework Podcast, and this is, again, everyone has access to this team, but there's really two people here who are doing all the work, Waylon and Sean. All right, and I want to show you how they organize their work. So first off, I'm going to go to the schedule for a second. These names have been replaced, by the way. These are not actual people's names. We did some editing ahead of this, just so we don't give some things away, and some things are confidential. So it's okay for me to show you this. But this is essentially the interview schedule with upcoming people we're going to be interviewing for future episodes, all organized in one place. We don't have to have this in Google Doc or Google Calendar. We don't have to switch products to go find out the 6 people we're going to be interviewing. It's nice and tight, all in one place right here. It tells you the time, it tells you who's involved with the interview. In this case, it's Waylon, and it's really easy to add another one if you want. But that's all right here, and the next few are previewed. So one of the really nice things about Basecamp is that while everything, you open up a tool and you get access to the whole thing, what you're seeing here are windows into that world. So you're seeing the next few things. I don't have to go into that to see the next few things. You're actually seeing the next few things just by jumping into any project. Gives you a sense of the next few things, right? The campfire, this again is a little social space for that. To do. So these are upcoming episodes, and essentially these are the steps involved to publish an episode. So phone a friend, an episode coming up on April 7th. They're doing the edit. So I'll click the edit. This is the first, apparently the Dropbox file for the first audio file from that. Then they're going to upload that to Transistor. Transistor is the podcast hosting service we use. They're going to write a description. They're going to have show notes. They're going to send the episode to Kefi, who's going to transcribe it, update style guide, convert and upload to YouTube, a teaser post, and the SVN post. So these are the steps, and you'll see all future episodes have those same steps. And as episodes are completed, you'll see here there's 98 archived to-do lists. So I'm going to go to this for a second, and this might take a while to load up because there's tons of stuff in here, but. These are going to be all the past lists with all things that are checked off when those things are done. And what you're going to notice here is that after some of these, you're going to see a little number here. Again, this is getting back to the thing we've been talking about, which is that everything in Basecamp has comments below. So this is a to-do for an interview. And these are the comments back and forth between Sean and Waylon talking about the edits on that particular episode. And I'm going to kind of scroll through this kind of fast because there might be some stuff in here that shouldn't be shared. I haven't looked at this one particular, but the discussion about that particular thing happens below that particular thing. So if someone wanted me to jump in, they can just send me the URL for that. Versus if this was happening in a chat room, they send me the URL to the chat room, and I don't know where the conversation is. Is it here? Is it there? Do I have to scroll up 7 screens to find it? Is it interwoven between a bunch of other conversations? No, everything is nice and tight, always in one page in one place. So that's kind of how that works, and that's how they organize their upcoming episodes. Now, in their docs and files section, they have some artwork. These are the different, basically like cover shots at different resolutions. And here's the Illustrator file, and here's the PNG, here's a PDF, that sort of thing. For, if they ever need these for a different podcast tool or whatever, they might put that in. Here's sort of a general show outline. Like here's kind of how they go through the show outline or how they go through a show. Here's some music. So they might use different little bits of music for different episodes, and that's all sort of contained here in a folder. These are little samples or theme music, that sort of thing. This is kind of cool. So they were, Descript is a product that it's a whole podcast studio, but also has a really nice transcription feature. So they were testing that transcription feature, and this is the transcribed text coming out of Descript. And it's kind of cool. Like they needed a place to put that. Here's the thing: when you work, you often just need a place to put something in a reliable, safe place where you know where to get back to it later. And the more separate products you use, the less clarity you have. Because I don't know, did I put that in Google Docs? Did I put it in Dropbox? Did I put it in this? Did I put it in that? Where did I put it? I don't know. And maybe I know, but how does someone else know where I put it? when you have Basecamp, everything's in one place, one tool for everything. So if you need a place to put something, you put it there. This is where this goes. It's a raw, random text file about the podcast. It goes in the podcast project. Here it is. Here's some invoices for transcription services, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, all that stuff, docs and files are living there. This is kind of cool. This is the message board. There's some ad reads we've been playing with. There's some discussions about upcoming episodes, tips for working at home. So here's like an episode we're working on about working from home. And so Sean asked the whole company if they had any suggestions for how other people individually work from home. And so people chimed in and shared some of their thoughts on how to work from home. And that's all contained here. So now when Sean has to go back and record this episode, or Sean and Waylon do this episode, they can come here to one place and one page and get some of these things. And they can say, hey, Justin, you want to come on the show and talk about this? Hey, Ryan, you want to come on the show and talk about this? So it's all stored right here in one place. Again, I'm not going to go into this because it would reveal phone numbers, but we actually allow people to ask questions, like viewer call-in questions. And they call currently, I think it's a Google Voice number. That number, then they leave a voicemail. It's automatically emailed to this Basecamp right here, into this tool right here. So all those things from Google Voice are coming right into this Basecamp project. So we have all those questions also stored in one place automatically. So everything's here where you need it. Now, the last thing I want to show you here is history. So these are all the organized tools for this podcast team. But down below, if you just simply scroll, okay, this is going to show you the entire history of the entire project. Here are the day breaks, here are the times, here's the person, here's what they did. Just scrolling back in time, what happened on Thursday, here's everything that happened on Thursday, March 19th, in this team, everything. What happened on the 18th, right here. What happened on the 17th, right here. What happened on the 12th, right here. It's all here in chronological order. So up here, you can get your organized stuff. Down here, you can just scroll back through time. This is all one page, man. This is all right here in one place. It's so useful, and you don't have to be digging around. Now, we also have this kind of view, which is the activity view across the entire company. And I'm going to take a shot and look at that. All right, so far we're okay. So this is the entire company's history of every piece of work that's happening across Basecamp in real time. This is a project called All Pandemics. Andy was commenting on something. Jamie's working on the Android Hey setup. Jason here is working on something in Haystack. Here's some more Android stuff. I will scroll down a little bit more. Michael's doing some QA here. Here's some parents talking about some stuff about parenting in this kind of world right now. So we have that as well. Let me go back home here. David, anything you want to jump in on? I know I was kind of rambling for a while.
No, I think this is good.
Okay.
When we get into some of the software development stuff,
yeah, let's walk into that in a second. Before that, Andy, any questions popping up I should be addressing?
Nothing particular. More questions about going remote. How to use a Basecamp calendar. When do you choose Basecamp calendar versus Google Calendar? Does Basecamp use Google Apps? Sort of more generalized things.
Yeah, sure. Historically, we have used Google Calendar for vacation time, but we've stopped doing that entirely. And we actually have a project. Let me see if we even have it visible here. Yeah, it's called Out.
Yep.
I guess it's probably safe to look at that. So this is our project called Out, and it has one tool turned on. That's it, schedule. And this is the schedule of who's out. I'll just kind of show it a little bit. We're just using initials here, so I think it's probably fine. Anyway, this is who's out, who's on vacation, or who's taking personal time or whatever. It's all in here in Basecamp now. So we just replaced Google Calendar completely there. By the way, if you do use Google Calendar or Outlook or iCal, you can click this link here and grab the link per calendar system you use and import all that stuff into your own personal calendar so you can keep track of all this stuff in whatever else you use. But we centralize it all here in Basecamp, so we do that. As a company, we're trying to get off Google entirely, so we've been slowly doing that. But we have used Google Apps in the past. We've used Google Docs, we've used Google Spreadsheets, and it's fine. And you can import those things or add them to Basecamp projects so you have reference materials for those things as well. And actually, let me just show you how to do that really quick, just so you can see that. So you go to new here. In fact, this is a Google spreadsheet right here, okay? And what's cool about this is you can actually comment on the Google spreadsheet inside Basecamp. Because again, everything is commentable. So here's some notes. And if I clicked on this, I'd open this up in Google, which I'm not going to do right now. But to add one, all you do is you go new and you say Google Drive, and you would enter the name of it, the URL for it. You could say whether it's a slide or a doc or whatever. You can add some notes. You can notify people that you've added it, and it's been added to the project. Same thing with Dropbox files, box files, the same sort of thing. So it's all possible. It's all doable. What you choose to do with your own company is up to you. But yeah, certainly there's a certain level of basic integrations here, which are handy.
One thing we don't do at Basecamp, though, is we don't have this huge shared calendar where everyone's activities on a per day or per hour basis is lined up. And at least for us, that's completely intentional. Like, we don't want that information out there. The most you need to see on a regular basis is like, is someone available, generally speaking, not is someone available like this hour. If you want to have a meeting with someone or line something up, you do the manual thing. Wow.
Sorry, we're back.
You do the manual thing and you ask people about it, right? Are you available at these times? So for us, having like a big integrated calendaring system is actually a bug, an organizational bug that we don't want to enable. So everyone at Basecamp usually have their own personal calendar. I have a personal calendar. I use Apple's calendar app. And that's just me. No one else can see all the shit that's on my calendar, and that's kind of the feature. I then, on my calendar, I import some things. So one of the nice things you can do in Basecamp is there's when you set up a calendar event, you can say who's involved with that, and then you can import the calendar feed.
I'll do that. So if I go to my schedule.
Yeah, exactly, my schedule.
So up at the top, there's something called My Stuff. If I go to My Schedule, okay, these are all the things that I'm involved with in aggregate.
Yes.
I can simply click this one single link, and I can pull the URL into whatever calendar app I use, and all of these things now are on my own personal calendar.
And that's how I use it, and that's how I see all the things I'm involved with. And then I mix that with like all the personal things I have, and it just lives on my device. No one else gets to see it, and it's nice.
Totally agree. That's what I do too. I subscribe to a single URL, a single calendar, and it just generates this for you automatically. It's amazing. Cool. Anything else, Andy, or should I just jump back into?
One thing a bunch of people have asked is, how do you do work that leads up to a pitch asynchronously? It feels like things that seem like they might be easier to do with spoken word. How do you do that?
Sure. I'm wondering what I can show you. Let me hide my screen for a second. Andy, can you take my screen off?
Yep.
Let me know when it's off.
It's off. Yep.
All right. Let me just take a look at something really quick. And then I will I'll jump in there. Let's see. One sec here.
I mean, one thing to bear in mind is a lot of pitches, they are done by one person. So maybe there's some sort of kickoff conversation between a couple of people like, hey, we should pitch that. And other times it's just that one person has an idea for something, and then they'll do the work to figure that out, whatever they use. They sketch it in Notes, or they don't sketch it, they just write it up, and then they post it. And then the pitch itself becomes the message in Basecamp that is shaped into the more concrete form that you might need before you're kicking off work. A lot of times this happens, like we have people at Basecamp who do shaping a lot of time, like Ryan does a bunch of shaping. We've been doing a bunch of shaping for Basecamp features recently, new things that we're working on. So perhaps that comes out of Ryan, Jason, and I having a quick call, like, hey, here's some of the rough ideas. And those are just kind of these vague, not shaped ideas. And then like, hey, Ryan, can you shape that up?
Here, Andy, you can show my screen again. Let me know when my screen's visible again.
Yep, it's up.
You see it? Untangle the people spreadsheet?
Yep.
Okay. This is a pitch that Ryan wrote up in the project strategy Basecamp. Okay. On the message board, there's like a breadcrumb up here. This is how you know where you are. Project strategy, message board, untangle the people spreadsheet. This is the depth of a pitch. Okay. Let me show you what a really good pitch looks like. And Ryan's like one of the best at this. Okay. It's long, first of all. So that's the first thing I want before I show you, I want to explain this. It's long. It's long and it's detailed and it's well considered. Things don't get pitched. You shouldn't be pitching something formally until it's very well considered. You can discuss it amongst a raw group of people back and forth. But what you don't throw up as a pitch going, I've got this random idea to do this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, well, okay, what are the details? Have you thought through the edge cases? Have you thought through all these conditions? Like a pitch is a well-formed, considered thought. And I'll show you how that looks in a second. So,
and this is why it needs to be done by one person most of the time. Like you can have sort of conversations about it, but someone has to do the deep work. Someone has to do the deep thinking. And then once the deep work and the deep thinking has been done, you can sort of survey for input. But you don't get to this level of detailed thinking in a group.
Right.
You don't pull 4 people together for half an hour and then you end up with this. That's just not how it works. So this is one of those reasons we're so big on deep work, on deep thinking, about allowing that time. And then also, just as important is to just recognize the limitations of people talking together. Like maybe this came out of, I don't remember where this came out. Maybe this just came out of Ryan's idea. Maybe this came out of a conversation Jason, Ryan, and I had. And then that conversation would have been very quickly cut short. As soon as we realize, okay, this is actually a little bit of an iceberg issue. It's deep. Someone has to think about it. Let's stop. Let's not try to solve the whole thing on a call with 3 people live. It's just not going to happen. The quality of the thinking is going to be low. Someone has to do the high quality thinking. Ryan, can you think this through? Can you dive all the way into it, right? And that's how you end up with something like this.
And this is the result. And what's cool about this is I'll show you the actual, this is a good example because I'll show you the actual outcome, because we did make a change in the product. So this is where it began, October 11th, 2018. Okay. Ryan wrote up this pitch. This is how it used to look to add people to Basecamp. We had a spreadsheet style interface. And he says, a really good pitch starts with the problem. Like, why am I even pitching an improvement in the first place? What's wrong first? Okay. Here's what's wrong. This is awkward. What's awkward about it? Well, you can't edit the name after you've added it. It truncates the name because the field is narrow. Why is the field narrow? Well, the field's narrow because we're sticking 4 fields next to each other in a small amount of space. Like a real spreadsheet, you can change the columns. You can't change the columns in Basecamp. So now, is that the solution? Changing the column width? Well, yeah, that could be one pitch solution, but that's not where we went with this because we think that this problem had deeper flaws. And so we're going to get into that in a second. So number one, first problem. There may be many problems. They're all documented here. Adding new people is awkward. Here's what's awkward about it. Bulk selection works backwards. Long story, but if you want to add people to a project, first you have to add everyone, then you can remove them one by one. That's kind of a weird mess. Here's why it works that way, but we don't really like it. So there's 2 fundamental problems with us, and there doesn't need to be 10. Sometimes it's just 1, but in this case, there's 2 fundamental things. Then we draw a line. Then Ryan says, like, I want to separate lookup from creation. Okay. So I'm not going to go into detail about this, but this is the level of detail of sketches that we do. Okay. Look, Ryan didn't redraw this box 15 times to make it perfect. He drew it once, and that's what it looks like. We get the picture. This is a magnifying glass or the letter Q. It doesn't matter. We get the picture, right? These boxes aren't lined up. Doesn't matter, right? Rough sketches, the least amount of time possible to communicate the most possible. That's what we're after here. So he uploads a few sketches with sharing some basic UI ideas, because one thing that's really important is we have to look at something. And we're not going to mock up a full-blown UI just to pitch an idea. That is a huge waste of time because most pitches don't go anywhere, nor should they. So you don't want to get into this high fidelity. I know designers are obsessed with mocking up prototypes. This is the wrong stage to do that. This is a pitch. This is an idea. Lo-fi. Now, these are called breadboards, these are not wireframes. This is not how the UI is supposed to work. This is just a series of fields and steps with some things. So Ryan went into this kind of mode because for him, it was easier to think this through. But this is also really fast, and it's not a wireframe. It's not intended to be designed. There's no understanding between the team members that this is a design we're looking at. These are just the fields, the information that we want to deal with in different scenarios, okay?
I think a good point to make here too is that this level of detail is enough for a programmer to have an idea of what it would take to do, because pitches have to be paired with a sense of appetite, and that appetite has to be realistic. So if we go like, okay, this looks good, and we totally sign off on it if it could be done in a week, someone has to say like, yeah, this seems realistic in a week. If the answer is like, oh no, this is going to break up, as we call it, a ton of concrete, you really have to rejig a bunch of stuff. This is going to be a 6-weeker. Then we go, maybe not. Now is not the right time. We don't have the bandwidth to be able to do that. But you need to be looking at something that's close enough to real in the sense of like, what would it actually take to implement this? Now, these are high levels, so there might be all sorts of UI fidelity you want to layer on top, but just the basic modeling, what does it take to get from what we have to where we need to go? The pitch has to answer that, but just that and no more.
And by the way, I mean, some of these screens are small. If you click them, it zooms full screen in Basecamp. So just in case you're curious about that, you can read all this stuff if you need to. So he did some more breadboarding, writing. Again, writing and breadboarding and sketching, some more discussions. Here's a beginning of a dedicated preview step. Like if we want to allow people to preview what the invitation is going to look like, here's how, what Ryan's presenting here is like one way it could be presented. He's not pitching a design. This is still an idea, but the design aids in the communication, like the sketches aid in the communication of, oh, I can see what you're thinking here, versus if there's no sketches and it's purely text, and sometimes some pitches are purely text, but most really good ones have sketches. It helps to dissolve the illusion of agreement. The problem with just text alone and just speaking out loud, by the way, this is not like, well, if you talk in a meeting, you solve this problem. No, it's the same problem, which is many people can read or hear the same thing, but think very different things, even though they think they agree. Sketching something helps you see and focus around something, and you go, oh, that's what he meant. Yeah, I get that. Or no, that's not what I was thinking. Here's what I was thinking. So
I would say what this often does too is that it diffuses a lot of tense discussions. Jason, Ryan, and I have been working together for 20 years, and we get into some relatively tense discussions about where features should go pretty frequently, but the release valve is usually this. Okay, if tensions get too high, like we're in too much of an illusion of disagreement often, we try to, okay, Ryan, just go off, do a deep thing, or Jason goes off and do a thing, or I do a spike, like get some real work. And once you have the real work, it's so much easier to see, oh, here's a good compromise, or here's not a compromise at all. We just had misunderstandings, and you get to a place where everyone is actually happy with it. The easiest way to just keep boiling the water is to keep talking. Longer you talk, especially once you have like these settled positions where you think you know what the other person is means, the more the water temperature is just going to rise. This is the way to let off that steam.
And what's so important here, I want to reiterate it. I know I've said it a few times, but fidelity is not important here. Fidelity slows you down. It's a waste of time, an absolute waste of time. You do not want to be working on anything at high fidelity at this stage. This is an idea. You just want to simply communicate. And a button that looks like this is better than a button that looks like it's going to look. Because the button that looks like it's going to look took time to make. It doesn't matter what the button looks like here. What matters is the idea. So anyway, I don't want to spend an hour on this particular example, but I just want to kind of scroll through here. Then there's some trade-offs. So Ryan talks about some trade-offs. And by the way, for those who are curious, this is not how every pitch goes. It's not always a templated thing like this, but this is generally the structure. Ryan pulled some data just to look at some data just out of curiosity, like how many people are being created through at the same time, bulk creations, et cetera, budget and focus, yada, 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 right? This feels like a big batch, a 6-weeker, okay? And then there's some back and forth between team members, okay? Now this all happened in the same day. So this post, if I go to the top, this post was pitched on October 11th, and 5 comments came in that same day, and then it just kind of sat there, right? Now, eventually, we decided to do this project, and I don't remember when, but let me show you the actual outcome. So I'm going to jump into, I'll go back into the Rework Podcast. I'm going to go into add, remove people, and I'm going to say add people. This is what we have now. If you remember, we had a spreadsheet before where these fields were all mashed together in basically vertical columns, right? In columns. Now they're in rows, which gives them plenty of room. It also allows you to choose people from a company, okay, and select people to add them. You can add a personal note, and then you can preview it. So this is what we decided to do. And what's neat about this is actually this is kind of a tricky one because everyone's already on this project. But here, let me go to let me just show you how it works really quick. Here's a small project, small team. So I could be like add Andrea. Boom, it's just going to autofill her, right? And then the next line comes up, and you would autofill that and the whole thing. So this is not a particularly interesting feature, how to add people to Basecamp, but this landed here because of the way that was pitched before. And maybe we'll do another live cast where we go into more detail. I feel like I've spent too much on this particular thing. But anyway, first there's a discussion amongst a few people, rough, maybe an hour, maybe 2 max. And then someone goes, all right, someone is now assigned to think this through deeply and put together a pitch. The pitch is written. Maybe that took Ryan a week to write. Maybe it took him 2 days. Maybe it took him a year, not of course of steady work, but over the course of a year, new ideas come up and he finally assembles things. There's no real time frame for these things because these are ideas that are bubbling up. But at some point he had enough to share with us in detail. We said that was good. We scheduled it for a 6-week project in one of our 6-week cycles, and it became reality. So that's kind of the life cycle of it. Now, I didn't show you the actual project where that work happened. I could probably find it, although right now it's the wrong time to do that. But that's the life cycle of that. So let me take you into some work. We've been an hour in now. So let me take you into we've been talking about teams so far. Let me take you into actual projects. Unless there's any other questions, Andy, that are really relevant and quick perhaps right now, or should I just go into projects?
No, I would go into projects, yeah.
All right, cool. Let me show you this project. Haystack, sign up and on-ramp. So Haystack, by the way, was our code name for Hay. Hay is our email product that's coming out, hey.com, HEY.com. And this product or project was actually worked on by 2 people, Flora, she was the programmer, and Jason, he was the designer. And this project had 3 tools turned on: a message board, to-dos, and a campfire. Most of the work happened in to-dos, and I'm going to go through this in detail so you can see. Everybody in the company actually had access to it. I don't know if it started that way. Sometimes projects start with a few small people, like just a team or a few additional people, and then people are layered in over time, because sometimes you don't want the whole company seeing stuff in the early stages, but at some point you want everyone to see it. So you can adjust this as you go. And oftentimes we'll either add everybody at the start or just a few people and then layer people in as you go. You can also ask to be invited to projects. We can also send around. You can grab a URL to give out to people if they want to join the project. So all that stuff is possible. But here's how the project began, okay? It began this way, with what's called a shaping doc. Now, I'm not going to go into this in extreme detail because this is a whole different episode, basically. But if you go to basecamp.com/shapeup, SHAPEUP, there's a whole online free book that we wrote. It's free for everybody. You don't even need to give us your email address. It's free, PDF, online, whatever you want. That explains how we work in extreme detail. This language of shaping work comes out of that. Basically, this means this is a project that we've decided to work on over the next cycles up to 6 weeks. And this is one of those projects that came out of it. Someone writes what's called the shaping doc. In this case, it's me in this particular example. I wrote up the shaping doc. This shaping doc explains at a high level what the project is about It doesn't create tasks. We don't ever create tasks for teams. The teams create their own tasks and their own work. We just set the tone, lay out the big picture, talk about some of the edge cases, give the whole thing some shape, literally like a shape, and then the team fills in on the inside. But this is what a shaping doc looks like. Here's kind of what the sign-up flow could look like. Here's my beautiful, skilled sketch style, right? Like just shitty little boxes with some buttons and some ideas, right? So I shared that, right? Here's what happens after you finish this step. This is what you get next. You get some bullet points, okay? Basically. Okay, go. This is what blank slates look like, basically, right? Etc. Then there's some questions down here. Now, I posted this on January 7th, notified 8 people. So initially, there's only 8 people on this project. Michael, who's on QA, had some questions about some things. I responded back and forth. Again, this all happened on January 7th, but then on February 4th, we pulled something out and an updated post was made. But all the discussion happened right here. Then, to-dos were created. Now, this is called a hill chart, and I'm going to show you this in a second. This is incredibly important. And this is only currently available in Basecamp. We invented this concept, and I'll explain why it's important. But let me skip over it for a moment. These are our to-do lists for this project. Each to-do list is a specific scope of work. A scope of work is like a chunk of a project. And in that scope of work is all the design work that needs to get done, is all the QA work that needs to get done in this case, all the programming work. So let me show you. Here's the sign-up flow, which is a chunk of work, okay? These are all the to-dos to complete the sign-up flow, which is basically name, email, password, that stuff, right? These are all the to-dos. There's not another 100 to-dos hiding in some other tool. There's no to-dos in somewhere else. This is everything for this piece of work. And Floor is the programmer and Jay-Z is the designer, and all the work is mixed together. There's not a separate list for design and a separate list for programming because that doesn't tell you anything. If you have separate lists, you don't know where a piece of work stands. You could have all the design work done, but that doesn't mean that the project's done. It's just the design work's done. But oftentimes designers and programmers go back and forth. And at Basecamp, they're very tightly integrated. And you're going to see that there's a bunch of little numbers after a lot of these to-dos. This is where the discussions were happening. So here's a to-do that Flora was assigned. Jay-Z, who is the designer on this project, created this piece of work. And Jay-Z, or I call him Jay-Z, that's Jason Zimdars. We have the same first name, so that's why I call him Jay-Z. We talked about this probably on a call or something and discussed it. And then there's some back and forth. And then I asked Jonas, I mentioned Jonas that brought him in. He got a notification up here in his Hey menu. This is the Hey menu. This kind of is the menu that holds all your notifications. And shared some additional UI here. By the way, this is some of the UI in Hey. Back and forth, some questions. And you'll see here that this was added on the 7th of January. A couple discussions there. And then a few more things. And then January 23rd, Jay-Z came back and closed it and completed the to-do. The to-do was done. So most of the work that happens in to-dos, and most of the discussion happens attached to those to-dos. And this is just one piece of work, and this is how this work happened. And I'll show you this more in a second. But on every given day, this piece of work moved over the hill, and I'll explain what that means in a second.
One thing to note here on the to-dos with the programmers is I often get questions about like, oh, so how do you do the integration with the code? Like how each to-do tie into a certain commit? They don't, because it's just not that important. And if it is, you paste in a link. The vast majority of these to-dos are just, they're tracked here, they're in Basecamp, and then the code just flows by on its own. There's a lot of kind of, in my opinion, overly specific intention to tie all these things together. So each commit has to correspond to some to-do. And it's busy work. And you don't need to do it, and it's not actually that helpful. All of these projects, when there's something about a feature, they usually have a corresponding pull request in GitHub. And in GitHub, we use the pull request review feature to have comments on specific code review things, but that's sort of a very tightly scoped idea that we use it for there. And then everything else is just the Basecamp. And it doesn't have to be overly timed back and forth. And one of the things we just haven't focused on building those things out. We actually do have a feature in Campfire, the Campfire that's in Basecamp 3, where you can tie it in, such that whenever there is a commit in a repository, it posts a line in Campfire. But most teams don't use it that often. You can set it up if you want it. In my opinion, that too is sort of just this busy work churn, or not busy work, but like avalanche of information that's just not necessary to do the work. So that's one of those reasons why we just don't have that tight of an integration between these things, because it's just not, you don't need it. And in fact, it just creates more noise, and you're better off without it.
And integrations can break, and you have to set them up, and passwords change. It's just like token change. It's like there's no reason for it. It creates more work than is necessary. So anyway, let me take you through hill charts though, because this is really important. So what the hell is this thing, right? This is called a hill chart, and this is how we as a company understand on any given project where things stand at any given time. All right. So everyone wants to know, or managers or the team, like, where are we on this? This is such a where are we? Are we close? Are we far? Where are we at? Right. And what you can't look at is like the number of tasks completed, because projects are not linear. And they're not equal. Like 40 tasks out of 50 done. For example, QA, there's 40 out of 51 completed tasks. Okay. Well, does that mean that we're 80% done? No, it means that 80% of the to-dos may have been checked off, but the remaining work could be 90% of the work. You can't just look at like where you're at on a line. You have to think about work like a hill. So let me take you through that. I'm going to rewind the project all the way to the beginning. Right? January 21st is when they began to do these hill charts. So a hill has two sides. You've got the figuring things out side, and you've got the making it happen side. Everything on the left is an unknown. Everything on the right is a known. Unknowns are things that you're still figuring out. You know the work, you kind of know what has to sort of happen, but you don't feel like you have a total handle on it yet. So those pieces of work live on this side. Now, each color here, each dot here is a scope of work that corresponds to a to-do list. So if I go back to our to-dos, you'll see to-dos have a color dot in the front, okay? Those are these, right? So if I go back to the bottom again and look at this, I can see that these pieces of work haven't even begun yet, but we've set up the lists. We know this is the kind of stuff that's supposed to this is the work we're starting to put together. And these two pieces of works, the sign-up flow and the drip email system, well, we're getting close to getting to the top of the hill here. Like we've almost got it figured out. Once we're at the top, it's all downhill from here, meaning we've got it figured out. It's just production work at that point. But we're still figuring out some of the systems. We're still answering some of the unknown questions. We're getting close, all right? And why is it here and not an inch down the hill? It's not systematic. It's not automatic. These are feelings. And I'll show you what this means. The team gets to decide where they want to drag this dot on the hill. It's like, where do we feel like we're at? Work is not logical in this way. Like, you can't just count up the to-dos and move something up a hill, because again, the one remaining to-do might be a massive unknown. The team has control, and the team knows how they feel about the work that's going on. So this is all about intuition and feel, and discussions and conversations about where they think they're at, and they put something on the hill. Now, that's on the 21st, okay? On the 22nd, they actually updated the hill chart twice, but you can see now that there's a third dot on the hill, which is post sign-up, which they hadn't begun working on the 21st because it's still over here on the left. But then they began working on it in the morning at 10:37. They felt like it was pretty close. And you'll see that drip system emails is almost at the top of the hill by the end of the day at 4:25. Flora moved it up there. Like, that basically means they're almost to the point where they feel like they've got it all figured out, right? And then like on the next day, It's over the top. They're like, we got this figured out. There's no unknown questions. There's no big unknowns. They're all knowns from here on out. We just need to build the thing next. These hadn't moved yet, though. Okay. And that, a few days later, they updated the chart again, some more movement, and so on. And so what you can see is
one of the one of the characteristics of dots or to-do lists that are in the figuring out phase is that you're still adding to-do items on the list. You might start that list early on the uphill. It has like 3 items because you don't really know what the work is. You start working on it. You start making something and you realize, oh, I'm going to need this. I'm going to need this. I'm going to need this. Then by the time you reach the top of the hill, the list is relatively complete. It's not checked off. It may still have, it may have the most amount of to-do items on it when it reaches the top of the hill, but you have a pretty good idea that this is it. This is the scope of the work. And now I just have to check things off. Now I just basically have to do it. And I think this really ties into why there's some magic switch here when you start thinking in hill charts, is that the idea that you can estimate or even clarify all the work that goes into something before you start working on it is a complete illusion when it comes to software at the very least. And certainly other creative domains as well. That you just don't know until you get your fingers in it and you start touching things, and you start moving things around and you start experimenting. Like, what is the thing even? Which is also why we start at the bottom of the hill from a very fuzzy, at least drawn pitch. This is not completely spec'd out, and you don't want to spec out all of it up front. Like in software development, we often talk about sort of the big design up front. These are not big designs up front. These are explorations of the challenges that there are, and then the team, as they work through the work, actually does the design.
This here, yeah, so that's actually a great point, which we can't really demonstrate here, but when we create to-dos in the beginning of a project, we're not creating the whole project yet. We don't know what work we're going to encounter specifically as we go. So this is not about, the shaping doc is about the big picture, but as the project evolves, more and more work is added. This is not about starting on day one with everything specced out. We don't know what we're going to experience. So this is about a very fluid process, a very intuitive process. We discover as we go, and we make calls and cuts. Here's another project. This is actually the BC3 app, iOS version 3.11. So every new release of an iOS app gets its own Basecamp project, okay? And here's the hill chart set up for that. Here's the history of the project, okay? And you can see here, you can actually add notes to why things moved. Zach started the in-app announcement work, got the control running, a JSON response, and the app displaying a bridge on the home tab. So like, why did this get moved here? Why did this get moved here? You can add notes to that, right? And then you can, of course, also discuss these things. But you can see how projects evolve and how projects move. And sometimes you're going to see new scopes show up that weren't there in the beginning, that are added as the project continues because new work is discovered along the way. So this is Ryan does a whole like day-and-a-half workshop on this. So I'm kind of speeding through it here because it's a little, in some ways, like a little bit technical for this kind of demo. But the point is that this is how we at Basecamp get a sense of where projects stand at a given time. That we use the hill charts for that. And most projects that are really on track are really well tracked on the hill. Now, I want to make sure I show you one more thing. So we're about an hour and a half into this, and I know people's patience wears thin maybe after even 30 minutes. But let me take you through a really important project that we have in Basecamp. It's called What Works. Now, if I hit Command-J in Basecamp, by the way, I pull up this menu. It's Command-J on the Mac and Alt-J or Control-J. On Windows. You can also get to it from up here, but it lets you jump around really, really, really fast. So I'm going to jump around to the What Works project. Boom. Okay, I'm on the What Works project. All right, and by the way, you can jump to people. So here's a little bit of a diversion real quick. I can jump to Jason Zimdars, and I get this little thing like, this is Jason Zimdars. If I want to ping him, which is a direct message, I can do that. What if I want to see what Jason's got on his plate? Like, what to-dos are assigned to him? I just, boom, click that. These are all of the assignments that Jason's responsible for across every project. Haystack boxes, Haystack search, Haystack sign up and on-ramp. These are all the things that he's responsible for. I can jump into any one of these things directly, can look into it, I can read it, whatever it is. I can also go Jason Zimdar's, and I can see like what's Jason Zimdar's been up to recently. Here's a timeline of everything Jason Zimdar's has done in Basecamp recently. That of course I have access to. I only see the things that he and I share in terms of access. So I can't see a project that he's part of that I'm not. But as long as we have shared access to all these things, I can see everything Jason's been working on, which is really handy, right? And so this is kind of cool, a little bit of a quick diversion, but we have a project called Your Proudest Moments. And this is for people to share internally, things that they're really proud of that are outside of work usually. Just stuff that someone like built a shed for the first time or replaced a wood floor for their first time. And Jason, who's the designer here, is a brilliant illustrator, and he illustrated a children's book. And so he was proud of that. And so he shared the illustrations for the whole company. Why do this? He managed a bunch of this stuff, and he shared all the pictures of like work in progress. He even shared, this is from Procreate on the iPad where he does this work. He even showed a time-lapse video of this illustration coming together, that sort of thing, did some stickers at the end. And so he shared that. And like, I may not have known that unless I happened to look through the activity and bumped into that, but this is a really great way to do that. So anyway, that's a bit of a diversion, but that's how you can see what people are up to. I can go to what works. Now, I kind of want to maybe end here and then we'll take some more questions. This is, all right, in a company, people want to know what's going on, what projects are going on, what work is happening, who's doing what, what's getting updated, what's shipping, whatever. And it's really important that everybody knows that. But what you don't want to do is force people to have to follow a bunch of independent work in a bunch of independent places. That is chaotic, it's slow, it's inefficient, it's all over the place. And you don't even know where to go to find it. So we have a single project in Basecamp called What Works. And we actually have them grouped by year. So we have another one for 2019. This is our 2020 project for What Works. Inside What Works, we have a message board, automatic check-ins, schedule, and some to-dos. Let me take you through these. This is really the heart.
Let me just make one point here, which is the key point here is there's a lot of tools that'll aggregate, oh, what are all the to-dos that are clicked off? You can even get that in Basecamp. There are some screens that'll show you off the to-dos that are clicked off. They don't tell a story. They don't give you the narrative of what actually happened, because oftentimes a bunch of work happened that day that wasn't captured in to-dos. Other times, like that one to-do might have been something that took 3 days to work through, right? So this is an opportunity in What Works for you to give a narrative of the work. And really, like, what's important? If someone is just sort of paying partial attention to what's going on, like we have a bunch of different groups at Basecamp. You can't in detail review what everyone did every day at the level of individual to-dos. That's just a waste of everyone's time. You shouldn't be that much in the know. You should just, for every person, hey, have a rough idea. For every team, have a rough idea of what's going on, just so you feel like you're in the loop. And this feeling of in the loop is almost like the hill chart, right? Like there's this sense of getting to a point where you're like, do you know what? I'm enough informed. I don't need any more detail. So this is what we're focusing on here. Keeping everyone enough informed, what's roughly going on. If you had to ask like, hey, what's ops working on right now? Most people at Basecamp would probably have some rough idea of what's going on. Everyone doesn't need to know everything all the time. But if no one has any idea of what's going on in other department, that doesn't work either, right? Like there's this dance you do where you try to figure out exactly, or not exactly, inexactly what other people are working on, such that you feel like you're in the loop. You feel like, hey, if I have something to contribute here, if I can help, if I can chime in, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to miss those opportunities. I don't have to follow everyone individually. And this is what we do it at all the levels, right? There's the team level, which happens at the sort of the kickoffs and the heartbeats at a cycle basis. Then there is the individual level, which is what are you going to work on this week? And then what did you work on every day? Like, so it's sort of like a bird's eye view and like frog's view and whatever the one in the middle is. I don't know, deer view.
Yeah, let's go. So let's look at that. Okay, I'm going to start with the automatic check-ins. 2 questions that are asked of basically everybody in the company. One is automatically asked every Monday morning, and one is asked at the end of every day. Okay, in the morning, on Monday morning, we ask everybody, what will you be working on this week? And when I say we, I mean Basecamp, the system, the product. Nobody has to do anything to ask the question. It's automatic. Everyone gets a notification at 9 a.m. in the morning inside Basecamp in their Hey menu up here. And it says, hey, what will you be working on this week? And I'm going to click on that and show you what we're working on. So this is me. Still trying to find a flow that works with kids and work, but finally setting in. Multitude of press interviews scheduled, lots of interest in our experience in remote work right now. Live stream showing how we use Basecamp, reviewing Hey projects in progress, catching up with Ryan to shape some BC3 work for next cycle, right? This is my rough summary as of Monday morning. On Wednesday, like some new things might come up that I have to do. But off the top of my head, this is kind of the stuff I'm going to be working on this week. Here's what Andrew's going to be working on this week. Here's what Matt's going to be working on this week. Here's what Andy's going to be working on this week. Here's what Connor's going to be working on this week. Now, these are estimates. These are ideas. This is not exactly what's going to happen, but this is kind of what's probably sort of going to happen this week. You know, things might change though, but this is basically where we're at. So this is the kind of stuff that we're going to be working on this week. All right. Now, what have you worked on? At the end of every single day, everybody is asked at 4:30 p.m. their time. What'd you work on? Rosa, who's like writes the best check-ins ever, shares a lot of information about what she did at the end of every single day. Okay. Some people share a few bullet points. Some people share bullet points and some pictures. Some people share interface design. Some people share just a short paragraph. Some people share a lot of things. Some people share links to work that they've done. You know, it all depends on the kind of work and what's going on. And here's what David was getting at, which is so important. This is not a summary of to-do items, right? This is not just a list of to-do items. This is, in your own words, what do you plan on working on this week? Or in your own words, what did you do today? Because a lot of things that you did today don't have anything to do with to-dos. Maybe you hopped on a call with someone, or you're going to create a to-do just to log that thing that you did. That's a waste of time. Maybe you thought today. Maybe you spent an hour thinking about something. You don't make a to-do called thinking about something. You talk, like, work is rich. People are rich in explaining themselves. Everyone knows what they did better than the system's ever going to know what they did. So this is a chance for people to write those things up and share. And everyone always asks me, like, do you read all these every day? No, I don't read them every day. But sometimes I read them and I go back and I look and I scroll and I spot something interesting and I dive into that. This isn't about everyone has to read this stuff every day, and it doesn't take long to write up. For some people, it's a few minutes. For some people, it might be 15, but this is important information that they want to share, and they're going to spend that time. It's worth the time that they put into it. Now, the other thing that's really cool, by the way, is you can click on somebody, again, and see their entire history of everything they worked on all throughout time, right? So that's one of the really nice things about this particular feature, which is really cool. So anyway, that's the automatic.
I think what's nice it's nice for individuals, it's nice for everyone in the company, but it's also really nice for managers because it's so much less check-in. Like, you don't constantly have to like, hey, so where are you on this thing? No, just go read the write-ups. It's probably there, right? And I think the other thing I find as managers, like, it's a good opportunity to just check in. You find someone like who's frustrated, like they're stuck on something. That's an invitation for you to then have a conversation about that. That doesn't rely on you every single day bothering people with like, hey, so what did you do, right? Like, instead of just having that communication flow between one report and one manager, it's out there for everyone, and we can sort of just glance on it. And oftentimes you get into this rhythm where you set a sense of like, is someone in a good flow, right? Like, is someone like unblocked? Is nothing sort of holding them back? Like, their updates are coming on a frequent basis. And other times, hey, maybe someone doesn't update for a few days. And then you just have a conversation like, hey, are you blocked on anything? Other times they'll actually write that like, hey, I'm stuck on this thing. These are just so rich and full of invitations and little hooks to make the work flow better. Sometimes it's the manager. Sometimes it's not the manager. Sometimes it's someone from another team. Like, you'll see all the time, someone will check in, what did you work on today? And you're like, oh, I was stuck on the setup thing. Hey, someone from ops chimes in, not on their team, just chimes in like, hey, I just found that thing last week. It's just a way to sort of grease the wheels of collaboration.
It's also a prompt for reflection. So at the end of every day, like, what'd you do today? And some people say like, you know what? I had a shitty day. Like I didn't get as much done as I thought I was going to get done. I'm kind of disappointed in what I did today. Like that's cool too. And no one gets in trouble for that. This is not about like holding people accountable at that level. It's not about that. It's about sharing and reflecting and being open about the work you've done. And again, everyone can write up their own. People have different styles. Some people are share more emotion. Some people share more logic. Some people have a combination of both. Some are paragraphs, some are bullet points. It's up to each individual person. And there's no assignment here, like everyone has to read what everyone else is doing, but the information is here in a dedicated, consistent, predictable place on a predictable cadence every day and once a week. And it's wonderful. It's a wonderful, wonderful way to get a sense of what's happening across the company and having a new appreciation for the work other people are doing. Because a lot of us don't get a chance to work with everybody all the time. And so I don't know what ops or SIP, which is security, infrastructure, and performance, might be doing on a day-to-day basis because I'm not checking in with those teams. But this way I can find out what's going on. And I don't have to lurk in their projects. I can just read what they wrote. Let me jump into the next thing, though, because I don't want to stick too long on this. That's check-ins in the What Works project. The other thing we do are called kickoffs and heartbeats. So every 6 weeks, every team lead writes a heartbeat, which summarizes the past 6 weeks worth of work, and a kickoff, which summarizes the next 6 weeks worth of work. So let me show you that. So I want to go and find iOS Cycle 1 kickoff. Okay. This is what Connor, who is a team lead on iOS, wrote up for the whole company. This is the kind of stuff they're planning on working on this cycle, okay? With brief descriptions of those things, okay? So this is not like a pitch. These are not pitches that are being shared, right? This is not like extreme detail like we had with that pitch I showed you that Ryan wrote. This is a summary. The intent is it's a summary for the whole company. Not everybody needs to know all the details. Inside the individual projects, there's a lot more detail, but if this is the high level, this is what iOS is going to be doing the next 6 weeks. Then 6 weeks later, here, what's nice is you can just filter these down. So I'm going to go to heartbeats, and I'm going to go to iOS Cycle 1, heartbeat. Zach wrote up the heartbeat. So Connor wrote up the kickoff, and Zach summarized the heartbeat. And this is what they accomplished. So they got this thing done, and they've linked off to actual announcements in other projects inside Basecamp showing the actual work that was done. Because again, this is a summary. So I'm not going to click on these, but if I was to click on these, you'd go to another project and see the actual work that was done, probably written up as a message, or it could be a to-do or something like that. Got this done, they got this done, they got this done. They made good progress, but they didn't ship this. They punted on something because they weren't ready for it. Mini projects that came up, they did this work, they wrote the stuff up, they shipped the new app or new version, right here. And they also took on some other projects as well. So they had some other things that they had some free time and worked some stuff up, and people then down here boosted them. I hadn't done that yet, so well done. There we go. And that's what a heartbeat looks like. A heartbeat is a summary. A kickoff is also a summary, but the heartbeat looks backwards and the kickoff looks forwards. Every single team across the company does this, and every single person has access to this. So everybody knows what research and fidelity is going to be working on the next cycle, what SIP, which is security, infrastructure, and performance, is going to be working on, what ops is going to be working on, what strategy is going to be working on, what QA is going to be working on, data kickoff, admin, iOS, all this stuff. It's all here, documented forever in one place. It's not emailed out. It's not lost somewhere. It's not announced in a chat room, which is going to scroll off and you'll never be able to find it again. It's all nicely organized with labels. So when you post a new message in Basecamp, you can pick a category. That's what these little things are. So these are kickoffs and these are heartbeats. And you can, of course, filter things down if you need to, just to kind of look at the kickoffs or just look at the heartbeats or whatever you want to look at. And that's how, this is how, with the combination of kickoffs and heartbeats, which are big picture summaries from team leads, written in sort of long form narrative, and then weekly questions about what you plan on working on and daily questions about what did you actually do. This is the multiple resolutions of information that the whole company can share with one another so everybody knows what's happening across the company. Anyone who's curious knows. Again, There's no quizzes here. No one has to look at this stuff, but it's all here, and it's a wonderful way to keep on top of everything that's happening. And by the way, this is our schedule for future cycles. This is when cycles end, when the next cycle starts. It's all here as well, so we kind of know how much time we have left in a cycle and when the next one kicks off. So that's that. Anything else to add there, David?
No, I think that's. I mean, one thing that's nice about having this on the record too is we have over time. Sometimes you go back and you get lost in like the week-to-week work, and even sometimes in cycle-to-cycle work. I've gone back and thought, like, what did we really get done over the last 6 months? I mean, we got tons of stuff done, but did we get the right things done? And being able to have sort of that trace of the kickoffs and the heartbeats really, it's just a great way of being able to zoom out even further, right? Like this provides the natural zoom at the cycle level and at the week level. You zoom out one more time and you review things on a little longer scale. It's just a great way of like, are we going the place where we want to go? Are we doing the things we want to do? We're obviously working all the time. So it's not about like, are we working? Are we not working? It's not about catching people who are not working. It's about figuring out, are we working on the right things?
Last thing I want to show you is another project. I forgot to show you this one. It's a really nice one. We published our new book. It doesn't have to be crazy at work. That entire process was managed within a Basecamp project, including our editors and our publishers were all invited to the project. And in the message board, we shared different, like here's the Korean cover. So Rebecca from the publishing house said, here's the Korean cover. Are you cool with that? And we said, well, the cover design's fine, but throw away your work. That was going to be the name of the book in Korea. Like that seems a little odd to me. That wasn't really our point. And so she goes, okay, I'll let them know and convey that to the Korean publisher. I'll keep you posted. Again, this was posted on November 15th. I said that on December 2nd, she came back, said Korean publishers wrote the attached letter. There's a Word document attached. And I said, I can't argue about the subtleties of the title translation, so let's just take her word for it. If she believes it'll resonate, then it's her bet to make, approved. So that happened across a course of a couple weeks in a single thread. And we have many, many, many examples of that, which is really awesome. Here's the check cover. So anyway, it's cool. And then I want to show you something that's kind of fun to end this off, which is that I haven't really shown a lot of like how do designers use Basecamp. But here are some unpublished design covers. So when we were setting out to design this book, it was originally called The Calm Company, February 20th, 2018. And we put a call out to our design team, and in fact, to anyone in the company to share some designs. And so we picked some of the designs that we liked that were shared. These were designs that were put forward by the people in the company. And these are some of the early designs. These are the designs. And so eventually we ended up picking this last design, roughly, okay? And then we went back and posted another message 7 days later, February 20th, February 27th. And we were then pitching this cover to our publisher at this point. And we came back with a bunch of different colors. So there's a white version, here's a yellow version. This is cool, the yellow version, like kind of the design bleeds off the yellow, which is kind of a nice little touch. Black with a white X and red text, black, framed by white on the back, black in the front, an X and an O. So this is how we work. This actually is one of my favorite ones too, which was basically, the back was the same, but we like copy edited it to kind of get rid of the things that we didn't like about it, which was fun. Anyway, this is how we work when we look at design work. So we write something up, we post pictures to a thread, to a message. We're not throwing stuff back and forth in a chat room usually. We go back and forth, and there's 23 comments. Here's the publisher, here's me, thanks for the feedback, appreciate it. By the way, this was posted on 27th of February. We go back and forth, here's some revisions on the 28th, based on their feedback. She likes this one. We go back and forth, March 1st, keep going back and forth, March 19th, March 22nd, April 27th, through April 27th. So this thread spans well over a month. Actually, a month exactly, in fact. What do you know? Sorry, not a month, 2 months. And it's all in one place. The whole history of this process presenting our design to the publisher is in one place with all the feedback in case we ever need to refer to it. And that's on the message board inside the project called publishing. It doesn't have to be crazy at work. By the way, this is cool too. In the docs and files section, here's a bunch of translation offers we got. So these are the actual offer texts and the royalties. Finnish, Russian, Vietnamese, Korean, Polish, Japanese, French, simple Chinese, Romanian. Here they all are. We didn't keep up with this, but whenever they were approved, we just turned them green. That was our own internal sort of like way to mark that they were approved. These all were though. So actually, let me do the right thing here and approve all of these, just to show you it doesn't take long to do that. So we had some of these I think were yellow for a while when we were debating them, and you'll see at the bottom some of these have comments, and so you can even discuss those. Anyway, and we also had some invoices and some other stuff, and here's the copy edited version and any other Dutch version and other documents we need to keep on hand. And then we had a chat room with some of the nice publicity that we got on the book and some things that came out as they were happening. So anyway, that's another example of bringing people from the outside into your Basecamp account to collaborate with them as well. They don't need to own Basecamp. You can just simply invite them. You can invite anybody from the outside and bring them into your Basecamp project. And in fact, I don't have examples of this, but if you bring in clients, you can decide to hide certain pieces of work from clients so they don't see it. So you might be working on something which isn't ready for prime time yet, and you could work on it behind the scenes so they don't see it. And when you're ready, you can flip this single switch. It says show to the client basically, and then the client can see it. So it's a really wonderful way to kind of work on things behind the scenes and also put it on stage when you're ready. So that's Basecamp. And I'm sure there'll be other questions that come up, which we can't get to, but we spent almost 2 hours on this, and I hope this was helpful for people. I hope it helped to see how a real company uses things. There's a bunch of stuff I wasn't able to show, of course. Maybe we can do another live stream. We'll go into detail some other time, but hopefully this is clear enough. Andy, are there any other things sticking around? Any other questions?
Yeah. So I kept trying to choose questions to ask you, and then Chris, the Black Techie, kept answering all of them with great answers. And so awesome. I invited her to ask a very useful question. She's actually on here on video, if you don't mind.
Oh, sure. Hang on.
I can pop her up.
Hide my screen.
Yep, you're hidden. I'm going to bring her on right now.
Yep.
Hello.
Hey, Chris.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. So here's my question, because this is something that I thought was really, really important. A lot of people right now are hiring temporary and contract workers. They might not be keeping them full-time or just trying to keep them during the duration of COVID-19. What would be a great way to organize them inside Basecamp? Would it be best to keep them in a project specific to the task that you're assigning them, or should they be on their own separate team? Because we don't really know the duration of how long that they're going to stay around, just to be transparent. But what would be a really great way to organize them? Because I know I'm looking to hire some contractors, but I want to make sure there's still organization, as far as inside of my Basecamp.
Here's what comes to mind for me. So I would add them I would create a new company, probably called contractors. I would add those people to that company, perhaps. And then I would selectively add those people to projects that they need to have access to. And what's really cool is that you can been talking for so long, my throat is drying out. You can remove them from Basecamp if their contract is over, and you don't lose anything that they said or wrote in the project. So you still have a complete history of their involvement in the project, but you can also remove them or remove their access, and there's still a history of that work. So I would just keep it simple like that. I wouldn't add them to a team, because when you add them to a team, they can see all the other contractors that you've also added, and that might be a little awkward. So I would just only add them to individual projects, and they can only see the people on those individual projects. And then if you don't keep them around, you can remove them from the account, but their contributions will remain there. That would be my off the cuff sort of way to approach that.
Yeah, we did something similar-ish when we had interns at Basecamp. We had an intern project where from the start that the vast majority, they're going to be here for 2 months, and then that's it. And I think we did it two different ways at one point where one time we invited everyone and they got on the HQ. Hey, we wanted them to be part of the project, wanted to feel part of it. But then it got a little weird too, because there were other times where we wanted to have conversations with people who were full long-term employees. So I think what Jason's suggesting is the way to go.
We also have another way you could do it would be to, you don't want to invite them to your company, because then they have access to the HQ. Yeah, I would just do it this way. I mean, you could technically also invite them as individual companies and have a bunch of individual companies, but that's a little bit of a messy way to do it. I would just create one called contractors, add those people there, and then add them to projects as you need to on a one-off basis.
Okay, awesome.
All right.
That's great. Thanks for the suggestion. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris. See you around.
All right.
All right. All right. Well, I think let's wrap it up. Unless there's anything else that's pressing. No, I don't know where he went. All right.
Hey.
He's coming back. Any other questions?
No, she honestly answered the vast majority of questions anybody asked. She's an expert.
Chris is awesome.
She should apply for support or something. I don't know.
Well, cool. I hope this was useful, everybody. And we'll see afterwards. Let me know what I missed talking about on Twitter. Hit me up on Twitter. What did you want to know that we didn't talk about? And maybe we can put together a list of those things and do another one of these and address those specific points. I just try to go through at a high level some of the things that really I think are important about Basecamp, how we work, how we let everybody know, how we know where projects stand, how we know who's involved with what, how you can see what's on someone's plate, what someone's been working on, how to structure the account, how to get a new account set up on the fly really fast, those kinds of things. So I hope this was helpful for everybody. All right.
Sounds good.
See y'all later.
Later.
Take care. Bye.